Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Gilbert Michaud. I'm an assistant professor of practice here at the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs at Ohio University. Today, I'm going to be talking about state renewable energy policies from a policy analysis perspective, which is important when we're thinking about different alternatives and outcomes regarding energy use. So often, public administrators or policymakers have to consider various arguments and think about the best course of action that would benefit the largest number of stakeholders, right? So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a distinct policy issue and then how to think about deciding between alternatives. So again, this quick talk focuses on state energy policy issues, which sometimes can be politically contentious. I'm going to be talking about renewable portfolio standards programs, or RPSs. And an RPS is basically a state-level legislative mandate policy that requires electric utilities to generate a certain percentage of their electricity from renewable energy sources, such as like solar or wind, by a certain date. So for example, a state might have a 15% RPS by the year 2025, say. Some states also have precise set-asides or carve-outs that basically establish a specific amount of that RPS that needs to be met by a certain technology, such as solar energy, for instance. But either way, the purpose of RPS policies are to basically encourage cleaner energy use as we move forward from traditional fossil fuel electricity generation, right? RPS programs also set up a market for home and business owners to generate renewable energy credits, or RECs, from their rooftop solar investments, as an example. And they basically sell those credits back to their electric utility to help the utility comply with the RPS mandate. So in other words, RPS programs can basically indirectly offer a financial incentive for those who wish to invest in their own renewable energy. So while many states have adopted an RPS program, some states only have voluntary programs, meaning that there are no financial repercussions for utilities not meeting the RPS goals, right? In addition, some states have actually gotten rid of their RPS program, and some states, such as Ohio, for instance, have actually frozen their programs for additional study. So there are a lot of different arguments that exist on both sides of the RPS issue. A lot of stakeholders, especially environmental groups, for example, have noted that RPS programs basically help stimulate investment in renewables. They create market access and financial incentives to those that are interested in investing in renewable energy, create jobs and other positive economic impacts, provide local energy security, among a number of other arguments. However, others have argued how more renewable energy on the grid may actually raise electricity rates, making it challenging for electric utilities to operate their grid infrastructure, and that maybe it actually destabilizes the grid with so many more homes and businesses generating their own electricity, which is much different from sort of the traditional centralized power generation model. Some states have even thought about what technologies sort of count as renewable energy. Most states count things like solar and wind and hydroelectric and geothermal energies toward their RPS. But other technologies, such as anaerobic or methane digestion, have been more controversial in places, as they release methane, which is a greenhouse gas, and a lot of other sort of pollutants into the atmosphere. But nevertheless, it's obvious that there have been a lot of policy debates and deliberation around these issues, as stakeholders have been voicing their opinions on the matter. So what are the key considerations around this issue? Well, a state that has a mandatory RPS will seemingly have more renewable energy, which again may create jobs and reduce pollution. But there may also be concerns around subsidizing renewable energy investments for technologies that are still relatively expensive. Typically more affluent people are the ones who are building things like rooftop solar on their homes. And so this may be a policy that could raise electricity rates for everyone, yet mostly benefits those that are more wealthy. When you're thinking about this issue from a policymaker's perspective, what else might come to mind? What other sort of suggestions might there be to best facilitate renewable energy use or alleviate things like environmental pollution type issues? One of the things that we discuss in our MPA program very frequently is issues like this, and whether these types of things are a public versus a private good, different sort of arguments around tax incentives or exemptions, positive versus normative statements. and many other issues that might relate to governmental intervention in a specific sort of policy realm. Of course, an alternative approach may be to do nothing at all from a governmental perspective. Perhaps the state should have no policy incentives to encourage renewable energy and let the market regulate itself if it can efficiently produce the desired outcomes. I'm not going to go more into the RPS issue here. And of course, there's no sort of real correct solution. But these are the types of issues that we talk a lot about in our program. So the RPS discussion was merely just an example of a policy issue. But overall, a lot of these policy analysis type discussions are really about defining a public problem, understanding the various arguments and stakeholders' perspectives on these issues, and using criteria and data to make objective decisions that really do enhance everyone's well-being. With any policy issue, there are trade-offs, but it's important to understand the political environments, the social implications, and really the reasons why governments often have to intervene to solve problems. This has huge implications for decision making. Let's say professionally, if you're a manager of an electric utility, or maybe you're an economic development practitioner, you might think about these issues in very different ways, right? But as a legislator or a policymaker, you really need to think about something like this RPS issue and think about ways to make informed policy choices through a process that one identifies the problem, next evaluates the alternatives, and really comes up with the best recommendation. The students in our program, often write policy briefs on these types of issues, whether they be in healthcare or education, drug abuse issues, climate issues, such as this RPS, renewable energy kind of issue, and so many other different policy arenas. So it's really about thinking who is affected, how are they affected, and how can you support your arguments with really sound evidence. I think this is a really important way to think since it has so many implications for decision making around the use of resources that really do impact our daily lives.